haven't even started the video yet, and I'm crying thinking about a character. These are the top 10 books that I read in 2024. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. These are my favorite books that I read in 2024. And whether this is your first video of mine that you're watching or it's like your 30th, I want to thank you so much for being a part of my journey this year. I have got my tea. I'm sat. I'm not moving anytime soon. These are my favorite books that I read in the year of 2024. Now, this is my personal list. These are the books that I just enjoyed, my personal ranking. I want to be pretty brief, but hopefully interest you enough to want to pick it up in 2025. Let's start with book number 10. It's actually a book that I don't have on me. I have it loaned out right now. It's Lovely War by Julie Berry. This was a completely random pickup for me at the bookstore. I just saw the cover. I mean, can you blame me? It's absolutely beautiful. Surprisingly, this is actually young adult historical fiction, and I know a lot of people are very surprised that it's young adult. I was too, because it doesn't feel like young adult, especially just given the topics of this book. This is so unique in the fact that it's a love story. It takes place during World War I. It follows 4 different characters, 2 different couples. All of these characters have completely different backgrounds, especially regarding the war. And the part that makes it so fun and so unique is that it's told from Aphrodite's point of view. And Aphrodite is the Greek goddess of love. I love this book for a number of reasons. I thought that it really stirs your emotions, and this was so insightful. One of the things that I love the most about it is that I credit this book to starting my whole love for I credit this book to starting my whole love for historical fiction, so I gotta give credit where credit's due. It's very insightful and brings a lot of light to the horrors of war, especially World War I. I read this book and absolutely fell in love with the characters, the story, the love. Next up, is this too hot? Okay, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. Number 9. The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This is a mystery thriller with a little bit of dark academia, and dark academia is a genre that I started dabbling in just a couple months ago. And I actually love this genre so much, and this one has a little bit of dark academia in it. This book is about the main character, Mariana. She's a group therapist, and she quickly becomes fixated on some murders that are happening in Cambridge, but especially so when her niece's best friend is a victim of these murders. She starts doing some digging and is absolutely convinced that one of the professors at the school is a murderer. He is a Greek tragedy professor at the school. All the teachers, all the staff, everyone loves him, but especially this secret society of females at the school. And this group of women are known as the Maidens. So Mariana is absolutely convinced that there is something shady going on with this professor. So when another body is found, she is dead set on proving that this man is the murderer. This book was so twisty, and Alex Michaelides, he really pulls it off. One thing that I love about this book, it's one of those things that if you're not paying attention to some of the small details, which he's really good at distracting the reader, you're totally gonna miss it. I love that I was completely fooled. I loved that there were multiple plot twists at the end of this book, and for me, that's a win. I loved it. I had a great time, and I binged this book. Now for number 8. We got a science fiction book on our hands. It is the 4th book in the Red Rising saga. I started Red Rising last year, May, I believe, because my husband Ian, he gave it to me for a book swap book, and I absolutely loved Red Rising. It follows the main character, Darrow. He is infiltrating the highest in society, because their society is kind of set up like a caste system. So he is the lowest in the society, but he infiltrates the highest. And it is an epic series. I feel like I have just gushed about how much I love this series so much. Pierce Brown is one of my favorite authors because of his writing. I know that there's like some people don't like this about the series, but I actually don't mind it at all. There's some moments where we will have like our main character Darrow, for instance, he will do something that the reader actually doesn't know about, although it's told from his point of view. I actually liked that. I love the plot twists. I love all the vocab words that I learned while reading any Pierce Brown books. I love these characters so much. That is really why I keep coming back, because I feel really invested. I feel invested in their cause. It has been years and years and years of this war at the point that I am at in Iron Gold, but I've actually read Dark Age already, and now I just need to read Lightbringer. Now for number 7. we have The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy. This is my first Pat Conroy book that I've ever read. This is beautiful literary fiction. This is set in modern day but is told in a then and now timeline, and that is what I love about this book, because the main character is actually recalling moments from his past and like his childhood in a therapy session. He's actually visiting in New York City. He lives in Charleston, but he goes to New York City because his sister struggles a lot with her mental health. He ends up going to speak with her therapist because her therapist is trying to understand her history, understand what has led up to basically this mental break. She's hoping that her brother will shed some light on their childhood and what they've been through, like what their trauma has been. He's like not into doing a therapy session with her whatsoever, but it just happens naturally, and that's what I love. I think it's also the beauty of like having a therapist, because you don't even feel like you're telling them, it just kind of naturally, organically happens. It's a family saga drama all about a dysfunctional family. It's actually a really heartbreaking story. I cried so much, and it made the list because yes, I loved the story, but these characters feel like family members. I feel like I know them, I love them, and I feel like I've shared a life with them. But there are really difficult topics, horrific scenes, so definitely look that up before jumping in. I wouldn't just recommend this to anyone and everyone, so definitely be leery of that. So excited to read more Pat Conroy books in the new year because I have a lot that I want to read. You guys, this list was so hard to make. I have read so many incredible books this year. Fable has made that so much easier, being able to navigate this top 10 list, and they actually happen to be the sponsor of today's video. If you don't know what Fable is, it's an all-in-one platform for readers to track their books, build a good reading habit, also like connect with other readers, be a part of book clubs. And one of the things that I love about Fable is they celebrate the fact that we read some amazing books this year, regardless of if we hit our goal or not. And to really end the year with a bang, they have launched their 2024 reading wrap up. It's literally like the Spotify wrap up, but for books. Let's take a walk down memory lane. You can start by choosing 4 photos that represent special moments in your 2024 story. This is so fun. Your year began with vampires, trials, and a whole lot of drama. Spring saw killers, queens, and plenty of twists. Summer roasted with spies, war heroes, and cafe romance. Ending the year, your reads matched winter chills with thrills. Didn't it? Wait, found guilty of having hot takes. Oh, found guilty of riding the hype train. Yes, you're in the top 10% of historical fiction readers. You're in the top 10% of sci-fi readers. Your reader summary, romance mystery maven. Your bookshelf is more tangled than a rom-com cliffhanger, yet each twist unveils your love for heart-pounding puzzles. They have the best aesthetics and features. That was amazing. So if you haven't tried Fable yet, this is the perfect time to do so. And by going to Fable, you are helping to support a small business. They just love books just like us. I highly encourage you to download the Fable app today and check out your 2024 reading wrap-up. Thank you so much again to Fable for sponsoring today's video. And now let's hop into book number 6. We are kind of talking about a new genre that I fell in love with this year. This happens to be the book that started this whole entire genre. It's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is my first Donna Tartt book that I've ever read. This is dark academia. It's also literary fiction to its core. This is about a group of misfits that are under the influence of a charismatic professor at their college. And they are so disconnected from the other students at their school. They start getting into some really dark practices. As Donna Tartt has said, their search for the transcendent has sent them down a dangerous path beyond human constructs of morality. That goes to show the kind of brilliant woman she is. I love her writing. I think her writing's beautiful, but also it's a dark book. So you're really just following this friend group. I didn't exactly stay for the plot. I definitely stayed for Donna Tartt's prose. This also deals with young adult substance abuse, and a lot of the conflict comes from interpersonal relationship. This is actually like the first, I think this is like the first sentence in the book, so it's not a spoiler, but one of their friends is murdered. You see how the friend group kind of deals with this murder, what leads up to it. It's one of those books where you know the climax like before you get there. So you kind of like, I don't know, I love books like that. I've noticed that there's kind of a pattern in my top 10 books that have a similar start. Also, There is an unlikable victim in this book. And all of the characters, in my opinion, are unlikable. And the ones that you thought you liked, you probably won't by the end of the book. It just feels like a really dark drama. And like, I was a part of this friend group that I don't want to be. And I loved this book so much, but I would also advise to look more into it before you read it, because this is definitely not a book for everyone. Now for book number 5, we have Recursion by Blake Crouch. Oh my gosh. I love this book so much. This is my second book by Blake Crouch and now my favorite book by him. This is a sci-fi book, but it's so much more than just that. This is a really fun read, but it's quite jarring. I sobbed. Blake Crouch really makes you feel things by the end of his book. And like the first one, Dark Matter, I loved the ending, but it does not compare to Recursion. Recursion is one of my favorite books I've ever read. I sobbed. If you haven't seen that video, you should go watch it. My husband gave this to me to read during our book swap. It was rough. It was rough. I don't want to say too much about this book because I think this is a really fun one to go in kind of blind. That's what I did. You follow 2 different point of views, Barry and Helena, and they're fighting for seemingly 2 different causes, but their stories do end up intersecting in a way that I never could have predicted, which was really fun. I'll just say, technology is being used for evil. Pick it up, please. Next up, number 4, we have 11/22/63. This thing is ginormous. It is huge. It took me quite a while to read it. This is by Stephen King. This is historical literary fiction. It is about a time traveler named Jake is attempting to prevent the JFK assassination. I cry like a baby, like I do with every single Stephen King book it seems, and I was so impressed with the research that he put into this. Stephen King is so talented and this book definitely shows that. I loved this so much. This is one of my favorite books ever. I know it's a thick one, but it's definitely worth it. Number 3. This is fun. This is a fun one. This is a fun one because this is a book that I never thought I would read, let alone love it. And that is A Game of Thrones by the George R.R. Martin. I have never seen the show. I've only ever read this first book. I did a whole video on it, which guys, it's coming. I know I've been saying that for months. I'm really sorry. But they're thick books, so they take a while to read. This is the first book in A Song of Ice and Fire series. This is high fantasy, epic fantasy, grimdark. This is a book that has a lot of political intrigue. There's this conspiracy that is kind of floating throughout the entire plot until it comes to a head, and that creates a lot of tension until that snaps. I love George R.R. Martin's prose. I mean, I read this and I was like, wow, I see why he is revered. And it's literally what the title says. It's a Game of Thrones. And a lot of the characters are actually not likable, but you've got some good ones in there. And a really cool thing about A Game of Thrones is there are a lot of historical events that actually inspired this series, but not just that, also like people and in historical places. Like for instance, like the Spartans and the Crusades and like so many wars that he was really inspired by to write this story. And I know that's not everyone's taste, but for me, I really liked it because it kind of felt more grounded in reality, although this is a fantasy book. But I have heard that the rest of the series has a lot more magic and dragons, so, which, of course, I know that there's dragons in this one, but I'm excited to actually, like, spend time with the dragons. Okay, top 2. Number 2, this was really hard. Really hard. These top 3, it was hard to figure out where their places would go. As you saw at the beginning of this, I get choked up when I talk about it because I don't know, this book just really impacted me. So impactful because of the characters, and that is Billy Summers by Stephen King. I love this book. This is a crime novel, so there's no horror. For the people that don't like horror, you're safe here. Although the cover looks really scary. Like that's one thing that kind of turned me off from it for a long time. The main character, his name's Billy. He is a killer for hire who only kills bad people, but now he wants out of the business until he receives an offer that is too good to pass up, and he's like, once I do this, I'm done. I'm retiring from this. Everything that could go wrong on his last hit goes wrong. This book was so emotional and so beautiful, and I feel like I could literally tell you scene by scene, chapter by chapter, what happens in this book because I just loved it so much. And these characters are amazing. Some of Stephen King's best. The character, I love this book. And the characters that Billy meets along the way on his journey. It's like, at first it seems like an inconvenience. You're like, oh my gosh, like, why does this have to happen? But it all is just perfect. I just really appreciate the motives of these characters. And this is one of my favorite books ever. If you haven't read Billy Summers, this is your sign. This is your sign to read it right now. Okay, my top book of 2024 is a book that I read in January. Yes, so it's been my #1 book since the beginning of the year, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. This is a horror novel. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. This is Stephen King doing what he does best. This is true horror. It is disturbing, but I would say it's like a little bit more morbid. And what's really haunting and terrifying about it is knowing the backstory as to why he wrote this book. There are a lot of mysterious things that are happening in this town in Ludlow, Maine, but it's also affecting the Creed family who has just moved to this town. And once they move, they're actually made aware by a neighbor of a pet cemetery that's on their property. The reason why there's this pet cemetery is because they live on a main stretch of road that has a lot of traffic, and a lot of the neighborhood pets actually get hit by vehicles on this road. So they created a pet cemetery for the kids to go and bury their animals, and it happens to be on the Creed family's land. And then really strange things start happening to the family, and it's like this darkness is just looming over them, but Stephen King's really good at distracting you, kind of making you, like, of course you fall in love with this family, but then you realize, oh my gosh, this is a horror novel? Like, I need to be on edge. The ending was so intense, and I was filled with so much despair after, but I loved it. I love books that make me feel a wide range of emotions, usually tragic books, which I don't know what that says about me, but that is it. These are my top 10 books of 2024, and I'm so excited to see what 2025 has to bring. If you watched all the way to the end, please comment down below your top 10 books of 2024. Thank you so much again to Fable for sponsoring today's video, and don't forget to download the Fable app to get your 2024 reading wrap up. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next year. It's okay, it's just like a few days away. Bye!